Good evening, Ewok. Good evening, world. Welcome back. Today I am once again doing an audio-only recording, largely because I just woke up from a nap and don't feel like doing anything to my hair. I also have something of a tickle in my throat, so you may hear me occasionally slurp a bit of tea, as right now. So, this evening, per request, I'm going to be talking about college and the manners in which it changed me. I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was, in many ways, the best time of my life. When I arrived at Michigan, I was an incredibly bottled up and repressed young man, as I alluded to in the last one of these. But I think a good example of that is when I first met my now very good friend and then resident advisor. There was a knock on my door, and I walked to the door, and he introduced himself and said, "I'm your resident advisor." And I shook his hand and said, "Pleasure to meet you, sir." Now, I'm a huge fan of civility broadly, and I still address people I don't know as sir, but I had completely misread the context here, being that where I had thought he was relaying to me a sort of authority that he held and was deferring to and I was deferring to that authority. He was actually just being friendly and would later that evening ask me to go and play video games with him. And so I guess when I entered college, I entered as in many ways, a sort of fearful, deferential individual. I didn't really open my mouth very much to express my opinions. I didn't, which is not to say I didn't have them, I just didn't express them. And I also was non-confrontational almost to a fault. So then the year progressed. I got incredibly drunk a few times. I developed a crush on a young lady. I experimented with other forms of never mind, I don't need to confess everything I did, but I did a lot of things, and each one seemed to peel a layer off of my bottled upness. I would find myself having engaging conversations about topics that had been taboo up until that point in my life. I found friends who were interested in talking about the things that in my hometown had made me, well, I mean, essentially a geek. And I also found friends that I could talk about the less fun aspects of my younger life, and have people with whom I felt a genuine connection and kinship. And I made, as they often tell you, I made a core group of friends there with whom I'm still friends to this day and probably will be for the rest of my life. I also fell in love Um, had a very long relationship that lasted until even a couple of years out of college. Um, and so by the end of it, when I graduated, I had a degree in classical civilizations uh, with a minor in environmental policy. And I saw the world so much differently. I saw people not as obstacles and sources of fear and, in many ways, rejection. I saw people as sounding boards for all of the swirling ideas in my mind. I, I, don't know, I think going to college really instilled a hope and humanity into me by watching people turn from mostly the more obnoxious variety of teenager into hardworking, hard thinking, forward thinking young adults was amazing. And in many ways, it sort of informs my plans for my later life. I have, at, to, at this point in my life, I really want to work for the federal government, particularly the State Department. I would love to go into the Foreign Service, but when I ultimately retire from that, I would love to go into academia and to teach in a university, because even at my relatively young age, I find that exciting to watch people learn. I can only imagine as an old man that I would really enjoy it very much indeed. So, I guess that's a broad overview of how university life changed me. It opened me up. It threw so many new ideas into my mind that you know it I think, I like to think anyway, genuinely improved me as a human being. I feel like I can talk to anyone on any subject and at least have some anchor point from a prior conversation that took place when I was at school that allows me to engage with basically anything that I find interesting. And that's quite a lot. So I'm I don't really have a grand message here today. I suppose if I were to say anything, I would say even with the rising student loan costs and all of that, my time in university was absolutely pivotal to me becoming who I am, and I can't recommend highly enough going to a good four-year university. Um, and I suppose that's all. Uh, so have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend, everybody. Be lovely to one another, and I will see you next Tuesday.